Hey guys, it's Alaina. Today I wanted to show you a simple and fun little art prompt that involves drawing a couple of base layers in color and then erasing that in different ways in order to make an abstract piece that sort of evolves as you erase. You can use this concept with any brushes for your digital art. I'm going to be using my mixed media brush set in the Procreate app as usual, but you can apply this concept in many ways, and the main thing that I want you to think about is just drawing a base layer, putting down some color and some texture, and covering that up and then erasing it. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's make a new canvas. I'm going to make one that is 3000 by 2000 pixels. I'm going to be using my mixed media brush set, which is available from the link in the description. You can also try this concept with any brushes that you already have if you don't have these. I'm also going to be using my mixed media rainbow color palette, and you can download this for free. The link for that is also in the description. So to start out with, I'm going to use the dry gesso brush in the mixed media brush set, and you could do this with any sort of paint or airbrushing brushes. I'm just going to put some color in the background. I'm just going to be very random. I'm just going to make that pretty big and just kind of add some color here and there in a blendy way. All right, so I'm going to name that layer base color, and I will add a new layer. I'm just going to name it Splatter 1 because there will be another splatter layer. So now in this new Splatter 1 layer, I'm going to be adding some splatters with my dense splatter brush, and I'm going to try and sort of correspond with the color layout that I've already put down here, but there will be some exceptions to that. So I'm just kind of generally going over in the same color. So I'm kind of going over some of these with a lighter version of the same color, just to add some variation here. Generally trying to keep to the same color palette, but still just adding a bit of variety. So I hope it's clear what I've done here. On the first layer, I put down a very basic paint layer, and then in the next layer I added splatters on top of that, which mostly corresponded with what was below, but in some areas I added different shades of the same color for a bit of contrast. So now let's make one more layer and name that one Splatter 2. And in this new layer, let's add a couple of splatters with the sparse splatter brush. This one is not going to correspond as closely to the colors in the base, so that's why we're going to be sparing with it and just have a couple of splatters that don't have anything to do with what's below them. So for instance, we could put the green over the orange like that. Maybe like a light green over top of this blue. And I'm varying my pressure, which is why I'm getting different sizes. A little bit of yellow on top of the red. And then some pink on top of the yellow, just a bit. Maybe even a touch of blue over here and here. All right, so now that we have our base texture, this is what we're going to actually cover up now. And then we're going to strategically erase so that this starts to show through. So let's make one more layer on top of that. And I'm just going to call that erasing layer. So I'm thinking about the color that I want to be erasing, and we could just do pure white, but I think that just to make it interesting, I'd like to have kind of an off-white or like a grayish. I'm thinking about this color, but I would in fact like to lighten that quite a bit and then take the saturation down so it's kind of like a grayish beige. Let's try that. Yeah, I think it's kind of like an off-white, but it's just a bit more interesting. So now we're going to start erasing this layer up here. I want to start out with one of the brushes from my mixed media set called Tangle, and you could also just do something like this by hand, just doing like manual squiggles. I'm just going to use this brush, but actually, you know what? I just did it wrong because I chose it under the brush. What we want is to choose it under the eraser. So All this time we've been using the brush, but you can actually choose any brush that you want under eraser. So we'll go to the eraser. It probably will be on something else when you first go here, so you're going to have to scroll around until you find the brush set that you're looking for. Go ahead and choose that. So it's the mixed media set in this case. And then we're going to go to the tangle brush. And so we're going to erase with this tangle brush. And I want to focus on a certain corner, or like not just right in the middle of the page. So I think I'm just going to do bottom right corner and see what happens. So that's definitely very interesting. I'm not hating that at all. I like how we've got like this circle here. I think I can definitely work with this. So now that we have just kind of a basic shape to work with here, a completely random shape, I'm going to go back to the eraser and choose a different brush to make some adjustments with. So I'm going to choose the smooth fine liner brush. And then I'm going to go throughout this shape that we've just created randomly here, and I'm going to fill in some of these areas so that we have some bigger shapes, so it's not just lines. So right here, I'm thinking this definitely could be an interesting shape. And probably this one as well. I'll leave that one blank and then fill this one in and that as well. So I'm just kind of filling in the holes so that we get some interesting shapes. And every now and then I'm just going to zoom out and have a look at what we look like now, just so that I can keep my perspective. So I think I'll fill this one in. This is definitely looking like one big shape, this one. So I am being pretty random here in just deciding what I want to fill in, what I want to leave. I'm trying to get an overall sense of what looks like a shape to me. So now I've still got this color selected that I filled this in, and I'm going to go back to the brush tool and again choose the smooth fine liner here. And in this color, I'm actually going to cover up, because a couple of these edges here, I just don't like how this looks. So I'm just going to smooth that out so that we have only closed shapes. Going back to my eraser, I'm still on the smooth fine liner, and I'm just going to keep working on the details. Maybe filling in a few more shapes. Up here, I'm just going to manually draw a few small shapes randomly, just so that we have this color as well. And a couple of lines connecting them. So now I'm going to go back to the brush and choosing a different brush. Let's go to Gloopy Ink, which is quite a bit less smooth. And I want to change my color to pure white. So going to my disc and double tapping by the white. Now I have pure white. So this is where it's important that the erasing layer was off-white, so that pure white is actually going to show up on top of this and add a few more interesting layers. So let's add another layer and just call that embellishments. So with that Gloopy Ink, just play around with the size a bit, I want to trace around a couple of my favorite shapes. I'm just tracing the edges, I'm varying my pressure, which is something I like to do with this brush, and so that we just give that a bit of an outline. And I'm not going to do that on all of these, but I just wanted to kind of make them stand out a bit. Something definitely needs to happen here. I'm not loving the shape I've got here. Kind of cover that up with a big white gloop. I'm wondering, maybe this one also. I think this really helps to kind of define. So first, we're very random with those lines, and then we're a bit random as well with filling out what is a shape and what is not. And this just helps us to define those shapes further. So what started out as random is taking shape. I find that I'm gravitating towards the shapes that are looking round, and I just want to make them a bit more round. Just kind of enjoying that pressure variation, making everything look pretty wobbly. Okay, I'm happy with that, and I think I'm going to keep that white color and go back to my sparse splatter brush and then add some white splatter on top of some of these areas. So especially here, I'm not really loving how this looks, so I want to make this kind of a focal point with some splatters on it. So again, I'm just varying my pressure, and I think that is a bit helpful there. Maybe a bit here and here. I don't actually love the splatter being on top of those circles, so I'm going back to my eraser and just get rid of some of that. Maybe we want one more splatter over here. And again, I'll just erase that. I'm thinking I want to go back to the gloopy ink and just connect a few of these circles. I'm just kind of going on the outside of some of these already existing lines, just to emphasize the connection. I'm liking how that looks to just outline an entire white space with this as well. So just taking a step back here, things are getting a bit weird, but I'm not hating it, so I'm just going to keep going. So this is definitely kind of weird, but I'm not hating it, and I'm wondering what it would look like if I added a bit more of this dark blue. So I'm just going to add another layer, and then let's choose this dark blue. Still with gloopy ink, let's draw some florals. So this is mostly just a really wonky stem with leaves, but I feel like it's giving us a bit more of a focal point, which we maybe needed. Let me just see what else we could maybe add in this color. We could do a dotted line maybe, kind of as if that were part of the floral. So something else that we could do is we could go to one of these base layers and then we could flip it and see if that changes things a little bit. I think I'm liking that the most. So I think at this point I am done with this. So obviously this is, very abstract, a little bit weird, but I wanted to play with the concept of drawing a base layer and then erasing on top of that just to see what would happen and how it evolves. So I hope that you enjoyed following along with this, and I hope that maybe you can get some ideas for things that you want to try as well. And please do feel free to let me know in the comments how it went for you, and I will see you next time.